I think Iroh could have defeated Ozai because he learned from the dragons and is a more experienced and disciplined bender. Listen mate, you clearly haven't heard of Zhong. He has some of the greatest firebending feats of all time, even without Sozin's Comet. Listen guys, those guys are powerful, but we can all agree that the one person who could defeat Ozai is the greatest earthbender of all time, Haru. With the power of the Avatar state, Aang is able to pretty easily defeat Ozai, as he should have, because nobody should really be able to match the power of a fully realized Avatar in the Avatar state. But there are so many, and I mean so many powerful characters in this show that you can't help but think, who else could have defeated Fire Lord Ozai? We will of course be referring to each character as they are in their peak, and we will go over both comet enhanced scenarios and non-comet enhanced scenarios, as well as the full moon. So in this video we will discuss who Ozai would absolutely destroy. That part will take like 5 seconds. Who would actually give him a run for his money, and who might actually have a chance of winning. Starting off with those who have no chance, this is pretty self-explanatory. These are just really the non-benders, so Sokka, Suki, Ty Lee. Individually, none of these guys stand a chance, unfortunately, but we will talk about them as a group a little later on. I feel like the only non-bender that you could argue for having a chance by themselves is Ty Lee, but she would just need to be so lucky, and blocking Ozai's chi would probably not be as easy as blocking like Sokka's chi. No offense, Sokka.
I can still fight!
Now moving on to characters that would maybe make Ozai break a sweat, but it would be highly unlikely for them to defeat him by themselves, and they probably insta-lose during the comet. Starting off with Katara. Now, Book 3 Katara is one of the most powerful benders we've ever seen, one of the most powerful water benders in history, really. She is extremely versatile. She can be defensive, she's great with ice, and she just has so much control and discipline and resourcefulness, and she just has an extremely high battle IQ. Can't believe I just said that. But it is true. She is very patient. She knows exactly when to be defensive and run away, and when to make her move to actually win the fight. But we are talking about Ozai here. Even without the comet, he is just too powerful for her. Even though water does counter fire, he has enough fire to just evaporate any water she sends at him. Even without the comet, he can draw lightning incredibly quickly, and lightning and water, obviously not a great combination for Katara. Of course, she can just stay out of the water, but even disregarding how water conducts electricity, the power of his lightning alone would be a nightmare for her. It's also worth mentioning that she was on the ropes against Azula, insane Azula, so I think Ozai would have no problem. But even though she would most likely get whooped during the comet and not during the comet, here's where it gets interesting. The full moon. Katara is one of only 2 bloodbenders on the planet at this point, and given the full moon, she might be able to defeat him, considering he doesn't know about bloodbending. If she was able to get close enough to Ozai, or if Ozai came close enough to her, I think that she would have enough control over his body to incapacitate and defeat him, even if she does not have full control over him the same way she did over Hama or the Fire Nation captain guy. And now, while we're on the topic of bloodbending, I don't think Hama would be able to do this at her old age, but we said that this is during their peak, so I think that in her prime, she would have a better chance than Katara at defeating Ozai during the full moon, because she is the creator of bloodbending. And even though Katara is a more powerful bender overall, Hama created bloodbending and was doing it constantly in prison to perfect it, and then when she was older, she still was bloodbending people just for the love of the game. And she, at her prime, was definitely a more powerful bloodbender than Katara ever was, which is really only because Hama embraced bloodbending and Katara rejected it, which, you know, Katara is the goat for that. So Hama in her prime would get probably like a 1% chance of winning without the comet, 0.1% chance with the comet, but with the full moon, I would give her a 30% chance, maybe 35 of winning. But later in the video, we will talk about how Katara and Hama would do against him on the full moon if they teamed up. So I would give Katara a 1% chance of winning during the comet, 5% without the comet, and 25% with the full moon. Now moving on to Toph, I think that comet enhanced Ozai is going to, unfortunately, have no problem with her because he can just fly and she can't see him. I think that without the comet, she can definitely defend against him, but I don't really see how she would be able to defeat him. Her metal bending would not be very useful, and his lightning could destroy any earth that she sends at him. So Toph, even though I think she could stand her ground and not exactly lose, I would give her like 1% chance during the comet and like 5 without the comet. Next up is Zuko. This one is interesting because by season 3, he's obviously quite powerful and a really smart bender, but he's still just not there in terms of raw power to defeat Ozai. Like he did with Azula, I think that he could be more defensive and Ozai wouldn't just instantly wipe him out, but like Toph, he wouldn't really be able to defeat Ozai, even if he could stand his ground. And even though they are both firebenders and both benefit from the comet, I think Ozai would vastly benefit more just because his lightning would be even more powerful for Zuko to redirect, and once again, he just gains more raw power from the comet than Zuko does. For Zuko to win, Ozai would kind of just need to let himself get hit by his own redirected lightning, which is not very likely, but given his performance against Azula in the finale, I do have to give him some credit, so I would say 1% chance during the comet and maybe 3% without the comet. Moving on to another interesting one, Azula when she is not crazy. I think insane Azula has no chance because she lost to Zuko, she pretty much lost to him, and then she lost to Katara during the comet. But sane Azula is obviously extremely powerful, the greatest firebending prodigy of all time. She's very quick, quick, she can generate lightning. She can't redirect it though, which is a bit of a dock, but not too much. And she has that combination of intelligence and raw power. Except the thing is that Ozai is kind of just a better version of her. So I would say 1% chance during the comet. I'm kind of just saying 1 because I don't want to say 0, but I could just say 0, but I'm saying 1 just, you know, because never say never, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, without the comet, I think I would just keep it the same. If she could redirect lightning, I would maybe give her a better chance on both scenarios, but she can't. So we're just going to go 1% comet and not comet. The only reason Zuko has better odds without the comet is because he redirected Ozai's lightning in the Day of Black Sun. Part 2, to be specific. And now, the one that you've been waiting for, Iroh. He is definitely the one that people mention first when they talk about who could have defeated Ozai, but Iroh himself said that he doesn't know if he could defeat Ozai. Iroh is older, less agile, he has fewer great big feats of firebending, but he is more disciplined and controlled. He learned from the dragons, he invented lightning redirection, he reclaimed Ba Sing Se, and Ozai himself knew that Iroh was very powerful. Iroh is great defensively, he's calm under pressure, and I think he would control the fight, being able to use Ozai's aggression in his favor to tire him out and eventually, potentially, take him out. It would be a very close fight, but I think that during the comet, again, Ozai does benefit from getting more raw power from the comet. Of course, Iroh would benefit greatly too, but I think during the comet, I would still favor Ozai slightly. I would give Iroh a 40% chance during the comet, but without the comet, I would flip it and give Iroh a 60% chance, which still doesn't mean too much because Iroh himself knew that it was not his place to defeat Ozai. That's one of the most mature things about this show, is how Iroh mentions how he might be able to defeat him, but it would not end well politically because it's just not his place to bring balance back to the world. Like he said, it would just be a brother taking power from another. And now for a couple quick ones. I think Zhang Zhang is a similar case to Iroh. Zhang Zhang has some of the most incredible feats of firebending in the entire show. He is so underrated, and I totally think that he is at the same level as Iroh and Ozai, but I don't really think that's a hot take anyway. One of the only reasons I gave Iroh a 40% chance during the comet is because he's not as agile as Ozai, at least not that we've seen, but Zhang Zhang has shown us that he is as agile, and he can give himself that sustained, effortless flight that we don't even see from Ozai, which is why I think Zhang Zhang has a 50% chance of winning during the comet, but I think Iroh probably has more raw power, which without the comet can make up for Iroh's lesser mobility, so I would give both Zhang Zhang and Iroh a 60% chance without the comet. Next up, King Boomy. He is insanely strong, he's creative, he probably doesn't win, but I think he puts up a good fight and could definitely stand his ground against Ozai. I would give him 1% with the comet and maybe like about 5% without it, so same as Toph. Next up is Pakku. I think that Pakku's only chance is at night being empowered by the moon, or of course during a full moon. He could definitely hold his ground against Ozai because he has that mobility, he's able to be very defensive, but in terms of just skill and talent and power, he's not too different from Katara. I think most would agree that Katara is stronger at this point, but Pakku just can't bloodbend. So with the comet, he gets 1%. Without the comet, I would also give him 1%, but during nighttime or with a full moon, I would bump it up to 3 or 4%. Next up is the past avatars. There's not really much to say about them because they would all defeat Ozai. Of course, they have the avatar state, but really, most of them will be powerful enough on their own, like Roku and Kyoshi. Yang Chen, we don't see as much of her, but I think she would still be fine. The only one who might struggle is Avatar Kuruk, because that dude was a bum. But I don't really know anything about him other than what we see in the show. I know there's more, but I haven't gotten to it. But still, in the avatar state, Kuruk should be able to easily defeat him. Just, you know, fundamentally, that's how all the avatars would work. So all of the past avatars, I would give them a 100% chance of winning. Avatars don't typically die in just a fight with some really powerful person. You can kind of say that Roku did, but he was also fighting a volcano. But, you know, to be fair, he did honestly sell the bag a little bit. But if it were just him and Sozin, he would have wiped the floor with Sozin. He already did once. Now moving on to which groups of characters could defeat Fire Lord Ozai, starting with, of course, Team Avatar. I think Team Avatar, including Aang, they obviously defeat Ozai very comfortably because Aang alone could defeat Ozai. And even if you don't give him the Avatar state, the combination of just him and Katara and Toph and Zuko, those four benders are just, they're definitely powerful enough. Sokka and Suki maybe can help a little bit, but you know, obviously, it's mostly up to the four benders, so I think they have definitely a 100% chance of winning, even with the comet, of course, because Zuko and Aang will benefit from the comet as well. And then without the comet, obviously they destroy him. But here's where it gets interesting. If you take Aang out of the equation, I think that they would have a good chance without the comet. I think they would have 90% chance because Katara and Toph are arguably the best benders of their element in that time. And Zuko, even though he's definitely not the best firebender, he can still redirect lightning, and he's still very reliable, I would say, at this point, because he can just fend for himself like he did against Azula. And he may not have as much raw power, he may not be able to unleash like devastating feats of firebending against Ozai, but he's still extremely useful and powerful in this fight. And then of course, Sokka and Suki can't bend, but they still cannot be ignored by Ozai, especially without the comet, because he can't just effortlessly get rid of them as well as he could have with the power of the comet. But with the comet, they have much lower odds. I think I would give them like 30% chance because Ozai's power is just too overwhelming. He can make lightning like it's nothing. He can kind of do that without the comet as well, but I'm sure it's still a little different, at least considering how he was shooting lightning nonstop at Aang. They would need to be super lucky, so that's why I give them a 30% chance with the comet. Actually, no. Final answer, I'll bump that to like 15% without the comet because Ozai's flight is just so powerful against them because it makes Toph much less useful, and not having Aang, who is the airbender with all the mobility, is just like obviously the biggest nerf because, you know, he's the Avatar, the last airbender. Next up is the White Lotus. They are whooping him either way. Comet or no comet, the White Lotus is sweeping Ozai. With the comet, it's not too big of a difference because they have Iroh and Zhang, who are two of the top 3 most powerful firebenders in the world at this time. Some of the White Lotus members like Iroh or Zhang could arguably defeat Ozai with or without the comet individually, so you add them all together and Ozai just stands no chance, bruh. Sorry Paku, you're probably not going to be very useful, but hey, they don't need you anyway because Ozai's done for if he has to face the White Lotus, comet enhanced or not comet enhanced. This gets even more out of hand when you include the other White Lotus members because I don't think that the 5 that we see are the only ones. Well, actually no, I know they're not. There are literally other White Lotus members shown in the finale, so if you include all of them, then it's just like, you know, even though we don't know how powerful they are, it's just the numbers that matter. If you are really an Ozai glazer, then you could say that he has a decent chance with the comet. I would give him like maybe 30% chance with the comet if I was an Ozai glazer, but I'm not, so I'm giving the White Lotus a 100% chance of winning, comet or not comet. The biggest difference between them and Team Avatar is they have more benders, of course, but they also have the fire benders, which is just a huge advantage because unfortunately Zuko does not compare to Iroh or Zhang, and especially not the 2 of them. And now, like I said, I'll talk about Katara and Hama on the full moon together, and actually just overall. So without the comet, I think they would have a decent chance, maybe like 25% chance, because they are both very powerful, and this is Hama in her prime when she's still young. With the comet though, I think they fall to like 5%. I'll say 7.5% to go between 5 and 10%. They would have to do everything perfectly, make no mistakes, and be extremely mobile, always on the run because the fire would be everywhere. But the interesting part, on the full moon, I think Katara and Hama together would definitely have full control over Ozai if they could get their hands on him or their bending on him. So it just falls down to how easily they could do that, and this is without the comet, so he can't fly, at least not as well as he could have during the comet. So I think after a while they could tire him out, or they could get a sneaky hit on him to put him in a position where they can bloodbend him, and they're already more powerful because of the full moon even without the bloodbending aspect, so I would give them during the full moon a 50% chance of defeating Ozai. But now moving on to the non-benders as a group, you could argue that if they had some kind of sneak attack, some kind of teamwork and distraction, or whatever you want to say, if they had like a really good plan, they might be able to do something with Ty Lee's chi blocking especially, but they would just need so many like tools to avoid getting just fire blasted instantly and, you know, getting the Jet treatment because, you know, it's a kid's show.
Did Jet just die? You know, it was really unclear.
Comet Enhanced Ozai would wipe the floor with them in literally a second, but without the comet and without him being able to fly so effortlessly, they could maybe defeat him if somehow Ty Lee was able to immobilize him. But even then, Ozai is a big, strong guy, so he probably can't get his chi blocked as easily as, you know, like Sokka. No offense, Sokka. And if that were to happen, it would have to be more than just Sokka, Suki, and Ty Lee. It would have to be like all of the non-benders. It'd be like also Mei and also Jet. But realistically, these guys, no matter what, have no chance. I would give them 0.1% chance with the comet and maybe like 0.5 without the comet. There's a couple other groups in the show. The Freedom Fighters, they kind of go along with the non-benders, but they would stand no chance. The Swamp Benders, they could maybe hold their own for a little bit without the comet, but with the comet, they're done for. The Sand Benders, we really don't know anything about them, but they would stand no chance no matter what. Unless actually they use their Shearshoe darts against Ozai. You know, you land one of those and maybe easy win. Which is actually not even the Sandbenders, that is the Beetle-Headed Merchants, but maybe they have a sleeper chance of beating Ozai. But anyway, I think that is just about everybody. Let me know who I missed. Let me know what you think of my projections. Do you think some people I gave them too much of a chance? Do you think some people deserved a better chance? Please let me know, and with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time.